Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. There's a question that has been bothering me for years now. I couldn't figure it out. And the question is this. The question is, like, why since 1948 is there's millions and millions of Jews returning to Eretz Yisrael, returning to the land of Israel, but the Geula hasn't started yet. Like Hashem hasn't sent Eliyahu Hanavi to announce the coming of Moshiach, right? There's no king in Israel. We have this secular government. So I've been really confused for a long time of what's happening. So I learned something really incredible on Shabbos. So I was learning Rabbi Shimon Schwab, his book on Yeshaya, on the prophecies of Isaiah. And after Tisha B'Av, we do something that's called the Shiva Nechemta. So there's 7 weeks, 7 Shabbos after Tisha B'Av, and these are all the Haftorahs of consolation, talking about the Geula, talking about the redemption. And finally, I got some insight, amazing comments by Rabbi Schwab of what actually is happening. What is the times we live in and what's been happening. It's really a beautiful idea. And one thing that these Haftarahs show is they show Hashem's eternal love for the Jewish people, that Hashem, despite the claims of other nations and other religions, Hashem is never going to abandon us. And we are never going to abandon Hashem. And that everything he's promised is going to come to be, and so let's take a look. It's really amazing. It's very beautiful. So it's Isaiah 49, 49th chapter of Isaiah. And we'll start at verse 14, pasuk 14. So it's very interesting. So it begins, it says this, V'tomer Tzion, Azavani Hashem, Va'adonoi Shechechani. So here, Tzion, or Zion, is the name that's being given to Eretz Yisrael itself. The land of Israel here is being called Tzion, and the land is saying that Hashem has forgot me. And it also could be referring, like Zion could also be referring to the Jewish people, but I think you'll see in the context it really means the land itself. And it says like Hashem has rejected me, and then my Lord has forgotten me. So Hashem gives an incredible answer in this prophecy, and Hashem's answer is this. Hasishkach isha ula meirachim, can a woman, or I'm sorry, we just finished. Hasishkach isha ula meirachim ben bitna. It's very fascinating. It says, can a woman forget her baby or disown the child of her womb? Like a mother, the mother's love, for the child is never going to go away. It says, Gam ele tish kachna v'ani lo eshkachech. So though she might forget, even if the mother would forget her child, Hashem says, I can never forget you. It's very beautiful, right? So then Hashem goes on to say this. He says, Hein al kapayim chakosich, chomosayich negdi tamid. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands, and your walls are ever before me. I believe this is talking about the walls of Jerusalem, rebuilding Jerusalem and the temple. So here's a beautiful idea. When we put on tefillin, like I don't have tefillin on now, it's nighttime, but we actually put like the shin from Hashem's name Shaddai, and then we have on the other side, we have the Dalet and the Yud. So we have one of Hashem's names on our hand when we wear tefillin, and then there's midrashim that say Hashem has tefillin, and it's parshas, it's verses about the Jewish people. So I think what Hashem's saying here is Hashem has his tefillin. Just as we have Hashem's name on our hand, Hashem has the name of Yisrael, of the Jewish people, in his hand, and he looks at it every day and it reminds him to love the Jewish people. Now this is the line that gave me such a deeper understanding of what's going on. It's very incredible here. It's a very beautiful idea. It says, Micharu banayich, like your children are quickly coming. So mechar sayich umecharivayich mimech yitseyu. This is a very deep idea. Now he's saying your children are rushing to come home. And this is the process that we're seeing right now. And it's very incredible. So even before the Geula starts, we see millions and millions of Jews going before the Geula starts, going back to the land of Israel because of their love for Hashem, the love for the Torah, the love for Eretz Yisrael, for the land of Israel. So we see this beautiful thing happening where we see millions and millions of Jews rushing back to the land of Israel even before the Geula starts. And this is in contrast. So Rabbi Schwab, he contrasts this with in the days of Koresh and Darius. So when we ended the Babylonian exile, King Koresh, he's called Cyrus, he allowed the rebuilding of the second temple, and not so many Jews went back to Israel. And then the son of Queen Esther, Darius, King Darius, then he fully allowed the rebuilding of the second temple. But we see in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah that not many Jews came back for the building of the second temple. So here we see something very beautiful. So now we've been in this very, very long gullus, this gullus Edom, and it's possible that this Roman exile has lasted 2,025 years. And at times we've hurried because we've been so frustrated. And we'll see kind of like the destroyers have like led us in these false redemptions. But the Micharu Banayik, your children, is meaning that the great love for the Jewish people, that they're rushing back even before the Geula started. It's a beautiful idea. So we see it in, we see it in all the great Tzaddikim that lived in Jerusalem and lived in Sfat, and it was a special time, the holy Tzaddikim that lived in that time. And we see like great rabbis in Sfat, like Rabbi Yosef Karo, who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, and we have the Al Shika Kodesh, and his great Agadada, and we have the Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, his great teachings in Kabbalah, the Arizal, and the Ari, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, and his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, who wrote down a lot of his teachings, and just many, many others, like the Or HaChaim in Jerusalem. Just many Tzaddikim have come back to Israel way before the redemption. We see, the students of the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Shem Tov. So in the 1600s, what I was talking about before, like we had this period, all these great Tzaddikim there, and in the 1700s, we had the students of the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Shem Tov coming back. And so it began, like, so these wave after wave of Jews returning to Israel. It's because, of the great love of Hashem and the Torah and the land of Israel. So here you have this very beautiful idea. But then there is this group called the Erev Rav, and they're actually holding back the redemption. And Hashem's saying that when the Geula actually starts, that this group, the Erev Rav, is going to be removed. So here, Rabbi Schwab, I'll read everything he says here. So this is talking about your destroyers who laid waste will go away from you. And what's interesting is like from me make, like from you, Yetseyu, they will go out. Meaning like these are people that are like inside the Jewish people. So what Rabbi Schwab here, he says, at the time of the final Geula, the destructive elements among the Jewish people, so those who refused to accept the Torah as Koramuna, so who caused and perpetuated the Geula. So these people are actually making the exile last longer. He says, but they will be purged from the nation. The rest of the people will enthusiastically hurry back to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel, to be united with their holy land. So now there's a different understanding of our pasuk. So Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he takes it as follows. He says this. He says, your children were too hasty. They had no patience to wait for the Geula. So those who destroy you and who laid you waste must first go away from you. So in this understanding of our pasuk, so now this is what Rabbi Schwab's saying, the Navi is foreseeing the many times in Jewish history when many of our people became impatient and gave up all hope of the Geula and attempted to bring about their own redemption. So this includes all the false Moshiachs, the assimilationists, the reformers who attempted to emulate the surrounding nations, and the secular Zionists who viewed Israel as just another nation among nations. The Navi is saying here that all of these destructive elements, the Mecharsayich and the Macharivayich, will leave the Jewish people. They will go out. But the core of the nation will remain intact. Right, so then we're going to see, so this is the time when the Geula actually starts. The destructive elements, the so-called Erev Rav, will actually leave the Jewish people. And then we're going to see the dramatic change in the world that's going to start to happen. So then Yeshaya, Isaiah, he goes on, and the rest of the Nevuah goes like this. He says, Se'i saviv einayich. So look around and see. Ori kulam nikbetsu. So ba'u lach. So he said, now look, he's talking to the land. He said, look around and see. They are all assembled and they are coming to you. So chayani, as I live, Ne'um Hashem, says the word of Hashem. He says, ki chulam ka'adi silbashi. V'sik hashrim kakala. And this is a beautiful idea. So Hashem's saying that now, like you will wear all the Jewish people living in you like jewelry, and you will be like adorned like with like a bride, like of all her jewelry. Then ki charvosayich v'shomamosayich ve'eretz harisusek. So as your land, as for your ruins and your desolate places, and your land is laid waste. So now this is talking about not only physical destruction, but the spiritual destruction. So this is talking about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, that we don't have a temple right now in Jerusalem. But he says, Yeshaya goes on, he says, Ki ata tatri miyoshev. But soon you'll be crowded with settlers. V'rachaku mivawayich. And while the destroyers will stay far from you. So this could be talking about the internal destroyers and also external enemies. And of course, also it could be talking about, finally the removal of all the terrorist groups, trying to kill, the Jewish people in Israel. So od yomru ve'aznayich. So b'nei shekulayich. So sarli hamakom geshali ve'esheva. Now this is an amazing idea. Now the children you had thought lost. So this is talking to about all the Jews that just were not raised on they weren't taught Torah. And this is sadly even a lot of Jewish people in Israel itself, a lot of Israeli Jews, right? They had basically a secular education. All the Jews that were assimilated or intermarried, just this had very little connection with Hashem and the Torah. That he's saying that the children that you thought lost, but you're going to hear, the place is too crowded for me, make room for me to settle. But there's going to be such a ingathering, like even well beyond what we see now, that it's going to seem like as the land was desolate and empty, and now there's going to be such an influx of Jewish people, it's going to seem like there's not enough room. So it says v'amart bilavavek, so mi yalad li. So then you're going to say to yourself, who bore these for me? Like, where did all these Jewish people come from? They all seem so assimilated and lost and just lost in all the nations. Savani shekula begal muda. Like, I was bereaved and barren. Gola visura. I was exiled and disdained. I mean, we see, like, right, especially now, like, there's this rising anti-Semitism, and the Jewish people are not held so highly in the world right now. Ve'ela mi gidel hein. But who raised them? Like how do they all hold on? How do they all come back? Like even, the Jewish people with the most secular education, PhDs in academia, how do they all come back? And it's this amazement that they all return. And then who raised them? Who taught them? How did they learn the Torah in this exile? How did they know? So ani nisharti levadi. So ela eifo heim. So by whom then were they raised? I was left all alone, and where had they been? So Koamar Hashem Elokim. So thus says Hashem. So Hine Esa El Goyim Yadi. So now Hashem says, I raise my hand to the nations. The El Amim Arim. And I lift up my people. So Nisi Heviu. Oh, I'm sorry. So it says, so Hashem's lifting his hand to the nations, but El Amim Arim Nisi. So Hashem showing like a banner, Hashem is showing like a flag to the Jewish people. It says, V'heviu v'nayich b'chozem, uvnosayich al kasek tinasena. And they will bring your sons in their chest and carry your daughters on their backs. So as now, where we see like the rise in hatred against like Zionism, and we see the rise in anti-Semitism, when the Gula actually starts, we're going to see a great change in the nations. When Hashem signals that it's time, when Hashem sends Eliyahu Hanavi, and when Moshiach is anointed, there's going to be a great change in the attitude of the nations in the world. And they're going to eagerly, not saying that, they're not going to say like, oh, the Jewish people don't belong in Israel, but they're going to eagerly bring the Jewish people back to the land of Israel. We're going to see like great change. Now here's something very incredible. So then, the Hayu Malachim Omnayich. And now kings, world leaders will actually come and they will help raise the Jewish people. It's an incredible idea. Visaro sekem menikosayik. And their queens will serve as your wet nurses. So meaning now, as opposed to world leaders opposing like Jewish people living in Israel, they will actually come and help the raising of the Jewish people to learn the Torah, which is just a miraculous idea for where we are now. So then, apayim eretz yishtachavu lach, they'll actually bow down, their faces to the ground, the afar raglayich yelechehu, and they will lick the dust of your feet. So, I mean, just an incredible turn of, instead of saying like we don't belong in Israel, when they see our true purpose, when they see our purpose of learning the Torah and doing the mitzvahs and serving Hashem, they will see a great change in the attitudes of the nations of the world, even their leaders, that they will help the Jewish people. And then we'll leave on this tonight with this a very powerful idea. And it says, "V'yada'at ki ani Hashem asher lo yevosho kovai." And you will know that I am Hashem, and those entrust in me shall not be shamed. Just, it's very beautiful stuff of this prophecy of the Nevuah. It's great consolation after Tisha B'Av. But we see the great love of Hashem for his people, that it's never going to end. And even though it seems now like we're separated, it seems like we're mourning, and it is confusing time of like how are so many people calling out around the world and saying Jewish people have no business living in Israel. But when we see the Geulah start, when we have the elements that are holding back the redemption from the Jewish people, when they're removed, and then when the Jewish people are uplifted to fulfill our true purpose of bringing the wisdom and the Torah to the world, we'll see in the period of the redemption and the Geulah, there's going to be a great change at first, in the attitude of the nations to the Jewish people living in Israel. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.